The Redline Narratives Podcast is your go-to for understanding how Boston's infrastructure plans impact all of us. We discuss everything from zoning to community planning, complicated engineering terms, ties to historical redlining and urban renewal, and even the cultural implications of development. It's all about making sense of complex topics and ensuring that you have an informed voice in these changes. We'll be having special guests, city officials, experts, you name it, in order to help us answer the questions so we can make positive changes in our community. So let's lock in and hit these streets. Welcome. Hello, everyone. Hello. Oh my goodness. Welcome everyone to Redline Narratives Podcast. I'm your host, Engineer Marlon Solomon, and boy, are we starting out with a live one today. So anyway, before we get started, can you guys please hit the likes and shares, and please join the Redline Narratives Podcast, so you can get updates in Afro American TV. We got a lot of great content up here, and we want to make sure that it's rolling around for everyone. What a way to get started. So anyway, we're very excited today to give you another episode of the Boss of Redline Narratives Podcast, where we talk about a lot of current issues going on today in Boston in regards to a lot of the anti-displacement, looking from an engineer's perspective. I'm your host, Engineer Marlon Solomon. So excited to see you guys. It's been a while. Hope y'all having a good, wonderful weekend. It's Sunday morning. I was supposed to do this yesterday, but things got all crazy. But anyways, so we're here to discuss the City of Boston's Anti-Displacement Action Plan, right? Now, it was launched by Mayor Wu, right, just recently during their address, of the city. And it's around 4 pillars: protect, preserve, produce, prosper. And their initiatives include expanded condos and protections, co-purchasing. There are a lot of programs anyway. And of course, there's some cultural space expansion. The emphasis on the multicultural housing solutions and other community involvement is also something that I find interesting. And I'm not going to try to go into all the details of that because actually it's available at, you just have to Google Anti-Displacement Action Plans. It's on boston.gov, and you can find out a lot about the information. I'm going to go over a little brief overview, but it's actually a lot. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done to even look into it. So the Development Without Displacement team, which is a team that, the Afro American Academy supports. We are, of course, looking for more members, looking for other ways to support. And this, hopefully today's podcast is going to help us all get a little bit of a better understanding of what's going to, what this is all entails. So, there are different parts of it. Like I said, I'm not going to go into all of it. And I haven't, we haven't done a deep dive. These are just a few pages. Like, this is a long, 68-page thing, y'all. So, give us some time. If you want to come help do research with us, we need help. So, anyway, it digs into a lot of different stuff. Some programs are existing, some are not existing, some they're in planning stages. So they have a whole slew of programs that the city of Boston is trying to put out there. I do like the motto, "A place to thrive," because the Afro American Academy logo of a motto is "Culture to Thrive." So I think we're in line with that. And like I said, I'm looking at it. I mean, there are a lot of things that are existing that have been around. Some of the issues seem to be how maybe it's a lot very fine tuned, very sectioned populations that it's trying to serve. Whether it's homeless BPS children. There's a lot. Anyway, I'm not gonna go into too much of that, but I just want you to know that this is there. And one of the key things that I did pick up, right, and I just wanted to highlight a couple of things, was that the planning, and I want to thank Scott from the Development Without Displacement team for, highlighting these things. Because some of us, we're all doing section parts of this, but we can't all do part. I do the math, so it's coming up. But before we get there, right? Okay, so we've got like the okay, let me read this out. The planning department and partnering departments will implement a new direct displacement disclosure requirement for projects subject to the Article 80 development review process. Now, I'm not going to go into all the Article 80 review process because there's not enough time on the podcast to do it, my brothers and sisters. But what I'm going to tell you is that the most important, the word there is the direct displacement. Okay, so now we need to do some more further digging, but what my interpretation of that means is like, if I put in a development, what is directly implicated in that, right? So if I put a building up and then like maybe like you can know that directly related to me building that building. So if it displaces people that maybe are on that property, that's kind of like direct displacement, right? Now, there's also indirect displacement. And that is the part that I'm also very interested in, also needs to be taken into account. And that is that indirect displacement means that if I put something here and over time property values increase, even though I'm not directly displacing, over time I'll be displacing people around. That part is not usually discussed. And one of the things that I want to, and then just to summate, one of the things I do see is that they're like creating ways of reporting, right? They're creating ways of reporting the displacement. So like if you're like a construction company or whatever development company, you're going to do this development, they're going to be direct displacement, you have to disclose that to people, okay? Now the indirect displacement, which is equally over time as bad as it gets, especially in underserved communities, it is important to realize that indirect displacement needs to be taken into account. So I do want to say that. But look at what the city says. So why do they have to do that? They said because the city presently lacks a systematic way to require developers to directly respond to and mitigate the impacts of direct displacement of tenants on their site. Okay? So, to be honest, I would like to give the city of Boston a lot of credit for at least owning up to some of the facts. Because some of the facts I've had with Square in the Streets, I'm an engineer. I want development. But how do I get development if I'm going to be displacing people that are developed? And to ignore the indirect displacement is irresponsible. So, but it's even harder to get these things done when it's even harder when the system and the people that are implementing these policies are not recognizing that they don't have any systematic way. Now, do we need to find a way to get the things to be systematic? Yes. What does that look like? Needs to be worked on. But at least if we don't have this established fact, because what I felt before was like the city was saying, okay, on one hand, we want to develop. On the other hand, there will be no displacement. So I want to give them credit for that. Second of all, right, the city, this second section said the city will outlines how the city will lead the coordinated implementation of the Anti-Displacement Action Plan over the next 2 years, alongside the delivery tools already in the city anti-displacement toolbox. So basically, they are going to be coordinatedly implementing over the next 2 years. So it is what, 2025? 2027. That's when we should expect. By then, how many people will be displaced? With the current unstable environment that we find ourselves, how many people will be able to deal with the inflation? If you want to buy a part for your car, who knows if it's an imported part, and all of a sudden, with tariffs, I think that this is just an and I'm not going to say that this isn't a reasonable, because when you're a project manager, and I always try to tell, people that I have talks with this, please understand, implementing is different from sitting down talking about it. There's a lot of infrastructure that you think, oh, just have to do this. No, it takes a lot of time to wield a lot of these things and put them in place. So I understand that, right? And but we have to see, are these even tactics even adequate? Are they adequate? Right? And most likely, right, they will not be. Now, this is the part where I've been waiting for y'all. So, hey, I'm ready to jump to it. And this is the city map that was also part of the tool. It's also part of, if you go to that place, you'll be able to find it. So once I saw a map, I started salivating at the gums. And I was out here just really trying to get to the bottom of, like, okay, now I finally have the current city of Boston displacement data. This is the security risk, the displacement risk map. And basically, when you see purple, what it says is that is where the economic pressure is the highest, causing the most displacement. That's the way you should look at it. Okay. The If you see, and each place, of course, has its own histories. So what is light, like the light blue, like you can see here in East Boston. This is because of gentrification. Okay. If you see the light here, it's not necessarily because of gentrification, because of the impact has not come yet. Like either maybe like Rosendale's, because it just never was a place with a lot of color, right? And so this you can see here, just looking at a top view, you see we have something here in East Boston. We have a wall over here in Lower Roxbury, South End, and Dorchester, North Dorchester, going down to Blue Hill and Mattapan. This is where a lot of the work needs to be done, right? Now, I wanted to make sure that before we get started, right, I wanted to show you why redlining is the reason why we're experiencing a lot of issues in the bit. It's like a ripple effect that takes 60 years. I don't know what to tell you. Okay? But that's how it works. All right? So you have this on the left, you have the red line map. I think this source is from Harvard, something on ArcGIS. Can't remember. But anyway, this source, and this is the Beeburg area. Very important if you understand what red line. This area was superimposed by the Boston Bank Urban Renewal Group in the 1960s after the Fair Housing Act. And this area was basically where black people could own and buy homes. Okay? So the red of all the way around, and you can see some of the differences. Like you can see, like over here to in East Boston, is literally the same space. Okay, going up through here, right? Now, this is in Cambridge. This is this is Charlestown. Now Charlestown's been gentrified. So you can see that the difference is that, right? Okay. And then South Boston, you can see over here, gentrified. Okay, so it's different. But the main area here on this side of the Beeburg area. So what this did, it took this red line area and along Washington Street, basically took this side off, and then this side is over here with a little less, but still some. And then the main band being along this area, which is here, right? Even reaching down to here. All right. So going down now, this area, this is where this Beeburg area basically has been collecting African Americans for the area, and now it has redline sprawled sort of this way. So this is like River Street, Mattapan. This is Hyde Park, right? And this is the red line sprawl around the bottom half of Franklin Park Zoo over here. And Jamaica Plain and all that has kind of been gentrified, as you can see here. This kind of part is kind of like sectioned off. So that is kind of what I'm trying to show you, just before we get started. Because when people say that this redlining thing is like, oh, it's something of the past, it's not. Okay? And it just ripples down over time. And this is the proof that I just really just can't. When I saw this, to be real, I was like, are they giving me this information? So, anyway. So this is the facts, and this is what we're dealing with, right? So people are getting pushed out of this place. So as you guys know, like I said, I do want people to think about joining the development of our displacement team. We do events. We educate people. We're putting together a toolkit. We are using these demands where we're trying to ask people to pause the zoning efforts, engage in community education efforts similar to like what I'm doing now. I'm hoping that with like this podcast, leaders across the city can see this information and be able to use this information to help their communities learn more and to stay in place. All right, set measurable success metrics. This is actually the most important thing. That's the issue. What are we calling success? Because to be honest, this wave has been moving for a long time. Displacement is like way. I mean, there are some places that are already. If you see buildings moving in, it's already too late. They've already set aside that whole place. All right. Set success metrics, address the affordability crisis, ongoing community engagement. All right. The addressing affordability crisis. Look, to be honest, y'all, I've been in room with the big three, right? And this big three of housing, that's BPDA, HUD, and oh gosh. Anyway, big three. Y'all know, like and the leadership, they're doing their best. And let me be very real. I want to be very clear. People are working extremely hard, y'all. They're doing a lot of amazing, brilliant work, y'all. And I want to be very clear about that. Okay? We cannot commend, and a lot of these people don't even look like us. They don't have the same problems as us. They're not living in our community, but they are working extremely hard with the city. And the city, I want to give a shout out to all the city workers and all the people out there who are doing this hard work. Okay? I really want to make sure everybody knows that. Okay? But even with all that, it is literally a drop in the bucket. I want to be very clear. I don't want to be that I'm downplaying people's work or that's not me. We're all in this together. But the issue is still the same. I have to accept that, like with all this work they're doing, maybe like 100 units here or 7 units there, it is a drop in the bucket to what I just showed you. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? That's the data. We can lie, we can make ourselves feel good about it if we want, but it's not going to change the price of tea in Roxbury. Okay? So I'm going to go back a little history, right? I'm going to kind of run through this. And this is about the Rosendale issue, because I've been following that actually very clearly. I want to show you what is going to happen with the squares and streets, what I call the effective recommendation. Very important to understand. So when I say an effective recommendation, what I say, I'm counting the direct and the indirect, right, displacement, and I'm looking and saying, this is what would happen if you did this, okay? So it's very important that you understand how we're doing this, work. So I identified that, so now this was my first work that I did, and you can see there, that's the square and street, like this plan that we first got when Squares and Streets was introduced to the Rosendale area, and it's on the right-hand side, right? And that area that I identified, I knew that area was a low-income area, right? It is non-white, mostly Black, African-American, Latino, with about 20% white communities, right there on Washington Street, right? This is a low-income area. And what my argument was that if you upgrade facilities in Rosendale Square proper over here, and you now make this place all like, mixed use area, that you would invariably increase the property values of that area, and then this low income area, while not on Washington Street, would effectively be recommended for redevelopment, because there would be now financial incentives for people to buy homes there and keep on going, right? And I mean, this is not, we're not making up any new information here, right? So I went a little bit into the data. I made sure I went to the census tract and kind of like, so what happens is like this, I talked about a little bit of a gerrymandered zoning where they mix a low income community in with a high income community. And then the idea is that by the time you look at the area, right? So when you see that area being blue, you say, oh, it's not as bad as the areas that are orange. But what you end up finding out is that within that, averaged out with another area that is higher income, you'll now, it averages out, so it looks less. And this is kind of goes to a little bit of the AMI and a lot of the issues that we're fighting for the development of displacement team. Hey, let me take this opportunity, please. If you think this information is important, if you think this information is something your community needs, please like it, share it. We need the interactions. Apparently the algorithms interact with it, but okay, now so back to what I'm saying. So if this community, right, has got this issue with and you can see the makeup, right, in your development, I argue that it would cause displacement, right? Now, later on, the city of Boston now, the Boston Planning Development Agency now sent us a new updated, like this color-coded map that doesn't really say what it's doing, but it's kind of hinting that it's looking at the areas in different sections, with the orange being like the core area and these being like connectors to other areas and like some kind of like intermediary zone, right? So I argued again that you can see right here, if this is your area and if you're going to develop this, it's going to cause displacement. And y'all can check out the past Redline narrative podcast that we did on this subject, But it's what it is. I mean, it's just going to do it. And this is what they said they wanted to do on Washington Street, right? For future higher density mixed use housing development, promoting active connection between Adams Park, Healy's Field. Well, they said Healy's Field. This is Healy's Field, y'all, over here. But down Forest Hills, the main T stop, right, in this area, with the T, for those who don't know, in Boston, that's our MBTA, that's our subway system. So the closest major T stop, and the Forest Hill is like a historic one, even at that, and the end of the line is, so everybody coming to the south of Boston behind here is, goes to Forest Hills, right? So that's the area, right? So that's like on this area going up here. So I'm like, if you do that, this area is going to, that's highly sensitive, because even remember, there was a trolley there before. There was a trolley all here coming down from here. So these are just reconnecting. Like they just went away from what was working, and now they're trying to revive it around and update the infrastructure around these old trolley lines. And then what's going to happen? These areas will invariably get more expensive. There's incentive for people to come in. And I said always a look around the parks, because the parks are, right, add value. So think of anything that's going to make your apartment sound better on a Yelp ad, right? Near the field, near the T stops, near bus line, near entertainment, near Starbucks, whatever, near a library, near this. All these things, near a health center, all these things add to the ad value. And that is why it is so important for us to understand. So now, later on, they now released the actual small area plan. This was done in February. I was in the middle of my Boston Redline 87 event series. We do that. And I was like, oh my God, this came out. So we actually used it on February 22nd. Some of those pictures I showed you earlier from the Development Displacement team. Remember, y'all want to sign up? Please let us know, because we're looking for people to help us crunch these numbers, do this work. So we got this. They sent this out. Now I want you to look very closely, There's like, and I'm gonna go over a little bit, but it's called S5, S1, S2. These are some of the languages that they discuss in, and nobody understands. So I am the one that created this little map, just like I created all this other stuff. And you're gonna see the visuals. And I hope that these visuals are useful. And if you need me to come to your community, please, like I said, we're all here, we're all looking for opportunities to share the work. So please reach out. And our development without displacement team, we're looking for where we can do workshops. But nonetheless, we are, you can see here that right here, this is where the parking lot is in Rosendale Square. They want to put 12 floors. All right, this is actually supposed to be here. I removed it a little bit higher so that it would say S5. So they want to zone this area to have up to 12 floors. They want to, this is 7 floors. The area that I'm concerned around, Healy's Field, they want to have 4 and 5 floors. And the bottom floors for that sake, right now there are ground, the normal triple deckers, mostly there, right? And the ground, it's mostly residential. Now they're going to make it mixed use with ground floor, optional of course, but of course you make more money that way. It's like, so over time, you're right in between there and in Rosendale Square and Forest Hills, of course it's going to be a great opportunity, right? So let me just give you a little bit of understanding of what these things, S1, right, is 4 floors maximum. Right, so you allow up to 4 floors with small active use on optional on ground floor for like small retail and restaurant, things like that. That is what they're proposing to be there. S5, the tallest one. Now, no maximum floor stated, but is approximately up to 12 floors and an active mandate on the ground floor. So the ground floor has to be used for mixed. So you're gonna build all this great, lovely. I think this is the bowling building. I don't know, but this is actually from the BPDA when they first brought this out. This is called S5. That's the 12 floors that they want to put there. So you can see. Now, I'm going to go over a little bit of the displacement map in detail so you can see what this would do. Because you see, so now this is what I did. I actually did make a little, what I call the max displacement risk number, right? And this max displacement risk number is designed to kind of give us, because they gave us, if you click on that displacement map, it gives you actually like these, what they call, you can see here on the right hand side, 4.7, right? That's selected area, and it's telling me that the displacement risk score is 4.7 out of 7. So I just to make it a little easier for us to understand, I made that out into a percentage, and that's the percentage you see on the left, right? And these are some of the things I think people should start, like, I don't know why you would do an arbitrary thing when you could say, well, if you have maximum displacement of 7, this is where it stands on the displacement. And if it's 0, then it's there. So the average of the city of Boston is 3.1, okay? And there's parts of Hyde Park that are actually 3.7, okay? You can see another part here, 3.7. 3.3, 47% of the maximum displacement level. So now, I can show you here Roxbury, right? This is Madison Park that I did, 4.6, right? Okay, that's Madison Park, 4 points, so 60% of maximum displacement. So this is the wall that I was telling you about. This is where the current, and there are a lot of projects happening right here. They just tore down another place here, Northeastern. This area is prime time property, and you can see that the darkest areas are around the school area. So that means that this area is the receiving, at this point, the highest amount of economic pressure, and it's because of the Boston Neck and the Boston Wishbone and a lot of things that I talk about in a lot of the research that I've done in our redlining and displacement in Boston, but in Nubian Square, this is, what's going on. So anyway, now the highest that I saw on the map is East Boston, over here. And remember I showed you that on the redline map. It corresponds exactly. And And that red line map, I remind y'all, is from 1938. That's a snapshot of 1938. And it's still the same thing today. Okay? Just to let y'all know. Okay? 97% of max displacement, according to this. You can see it's almost off the Richter scale. And that's because it's so close. See, all these areas are gentrified. The economic activity here and the amount of people who can live there and the kind of, money that they have is attracting rents that is literally, I mean, we should be checking if people are flying into Massachusetts, the Bay of Massachusetts, because of the kind of pressure that's there and not to make light of it, but I'm just trying to like really figuratively say that 6.8 out of 7 is 97% of the maximum displacement by the city's own data. It's not my data. I'm just reading it out to you. Okay? Now, when you think of the squares and streets, going back to Hyde Park, you can see that the area that they are identifying as far as Cleary Square is exactly the same area that has the max displacement of 4.2 in Hyde Park of 60% of maximum displacement. So, granted, this goes to that first one. We need a pause. Y'all, we need a pause. This is city displacement. I just telling you can go look at everything. Go check it out online yourself. Don't kill the messenger. Please don't. In fact, y'all need to check everything, do your support, because we're bringing this information to y'all. We need our organization. We need support. That's real talk, right? Because of this information, this research, the kind of workshops that we need, the development of our displacement team needs supports to do the research, to organize the events, to pay for this and that. And we think that this, we need to get people to understand that they need a pause. And that's what we're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do anyway. That's what our organization is trying to do. Because this is just a recipe for displacement in Hyde Park. And you can see, this is the park here. Remember I told you parks are add values? So I just made sure that park was identified. So this is the squares and streets plan. This is the area displacement. So I don't know what the plan is for retention of people, but I wanted to make sure people recognize and we put on document what the part of Hyde Park, what are the part of Boston I love. Hyde Park, the green city is all about. I took these pictures last year. Those are the blue hills in the background. This is the green city. We want our city to be known as a city where of the greenest part of the city. And we know that a lot of this displacement, the plans are having to put high buildings here, is something that's going to is going to detract from our vision of the residents of Hyde Park, right? And let it be documented. This is how good it used to look. So whenever it happened, if it don't happen, y'all know that this is what it looked like. Because it's beautiful, ain't it? So now let me tell you why it's beautiful. And this is why community action is so important. This is why we recognize during Boston Redline 87, People Before Highways Day, January 25th, 1969, because that community action came together and stopped my Hyde Park from being leveled to the ground. Well, there was actually parts of it leveled to the ground, but we're talking about this is the route that the I-95 would have taken. And it was through that community action in 1969 that in 1972, the highways were finally canceled and Hyde Park was saved. But it being saved means that it's being preserved. And if it's being preserved, what will this do? What will this new square and street plan do? And this is the literal, that's the Pride, the park that I just showed is somewhere here. All this area is the area. So let's not have some figurative locations on a map. This is what will be displaced, and the people in this community will be displaced due to this squares and streets rezoning. We did have a mapping sessions in which we did have some very interesting plans in which we can use this area as a place to create the kind of cultural, economic vibrancy that will resonate and allow us to maybe even have some more funds to keep people in place. Because I don't think that this solution should be looked upon as just like we have to directly put housing here. What about if we create systems, economic systems that keep people in place that also allow our communities to fund some of the programs, these education programs, these things that will allow us to to stay in place, because the pressure is here as the documentation forms, right? So we want everyone to know that you know, this actually, I need to take an updated one on this. I said I was gonna take it, and I got a whole bunch of stuff going because you know how busy it is trying to. But because they've actually built this building, and I wanted to see what the compare and contrast. But nonetheless, this is kind of the visuals that we showed, so that we can show, okay, like, look, y'all, this is what they're trying to do. Because people don't know what S1 is and S2 is. They don't know what they're. So yes, we want our housing, and then out of this housing, how much percent of it is actually affordable, right? If is it 20%, or out of that 20% is 17%, out of that 17% is 3%, and some is for only the lowest, like maybe like 3% for the lowest people, and there's a lot of stuff that goes on, right? Where are your parking spaces? Because remember, this is the parking space. We actually think that this is a place that we can use for cultural, and this was at the March 15th event that we did. Development of displacement, we decided that, you know what, we may want this place to be like a cultural, like, like a park where we can, use it to have festivals and things, bring people to our communities, to our restaurants, and get more access points. This is the parking lot at the commuter rail. We need that to be upgraded. We want more trolleys. We need the trolleys. We need to go down. This is River Street. Trolleys to go down here. We need tourism in our community so we can keep our people in place. How are we going to do this? So these are the kind of things that we're looking at, not just like, oh, we're going to use the place and build direct housing and think. I think it's not, we need to think in a more long-term point of view. All right. So, all in all, I see that this is a comprehensive plan. I think, like I said, the city of Boston, the people are working extremely hard. And I want to, like I said, shout out to you guys. Thumbs up, keep it up. We love the work that you're doing, but there's a lot that's still missing. I understand the time frame and how long it's gonna be, because I mean, like it says, like like we're talking about, they do have some strong initiatives, but how widespread it is it? This funding issue, it's a federal issue. Like I'm trying to point out, this is like a trickle effect of redlining and urban renewal. And if you had these stabilized communities that were in place, you wouldn't have the trickle down effect that we're dealing with now. We need data driven and community focused engagement, right? Which is what I'm really trying to do. You'll see a lot more visuals. The documentary that screenings we're having is having a major impact, because people are seeing in a documentary form, what happens to their communities. An emphasis on multicultural housing and designing culture into housing. I'm down for that. So there's a lot of different things that they put on there, but what does it look like? The devil's always in the details. We need to do further investigation, but you can rest assured, me, African American Academy, the development of displacement team, we're on this, but we do need more support. So please, like I said, this is a nonprofit effort. We need to make this a movement, because this is not going away. We're going to be dealing with this, as you can see. We've been dealing with it for 60 years. It's going to, since the community around Madison Park was leveled to the ground, and we're going to be dealing with it until we do some actual fixings of remedies, and not encourage development without protections in place, without time for people to process, without rights to return, catchment areas. What are we doing? They've opened up a new train line to Stoughton and Fall River. I'm very interested in looking along there. How do we ensure that people who are being displaced to Brockton, who are being displaced right now, like this is not a figurative thing, that are being displaced, how are we protecting? Just because I believe that if once a Bostonian, always a Bostonian, and we need to ensure that these people that their voices are being heard. So just look out for Redline Narrative Podcast. We're going to be going down there to Brockton, and we're going to be getting stories because it's like it's happening now. Like this idea that it's some figurative thing that's happening in the future is a bunch of BS. All right. So now one of the things that I did, there is insufficient explicit focus on the racial and the cultural equity. I understand that is really kind of our forte here at African American Academy. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. Lacks regional coordination of suburban displacement and relocation efforts. Where will people go? And right to return. So I really want to get into the details of that. Man, 2 years is gonna. A lot of people are gonna be gone. So what happens now? We're paying our taxes now. Okay, we are voting now. Like this is an election year. We're voting now. Okay, so we need people to be informed so they can make vote well informed use of their votes and well intended use of your tax dollars. That's also an important message that I want to send today. Okay, we are a non-governmental organization. If the government is coming short with communication efforts, with education, with research and development, and if there's nonprofits that fill those needs, I urge everyone, and this doesn't have to just do with us and redlining. You may be education, it may be equity issues, transgender issues, environmental issues. You name it. You know what you love. You know what you love. Whatever it is, please, this tax season, you have a choice to use your tax dollars any way you would like to use your tax dollars. Okay? You have a responsibility and you can use it wherever you want. If you're going to put in the Department of Education, if you think of the Department of Education would fund this, and then think of this kind of podcast, and think of this kind of podcast is necessary for your community. All right? Let's tally those two things and then do the right thing. Check with your accounting professionals and find out what the maximum legal amount you can do. And please, as a form of resistance, vote with your dollars, vote with your vote, make informed decisions, because this is not a situation that we need to take lightly, that our communities are being targeted with displacement. These are mothers, daughters, brothers, sisters, organizations, communities, institutions, cultural artifacts. I could go on. And we need to make sure that we are supporting these organizations. So, in summary, I want to make sure that people understand that development without displacement is not possible. Okay? It's not possible. It's just, think of it like your house. Okay? If you put on an extra room, maybe pave your driveway, you make some improvements, new set of coat of paint, I don't know, whatever it is, you are adding value to that property, are you not? On a community level, it works the same way. You put in T-stops, you put in new housing, new features, new sensors, new add values. It increases the property value. So it's not possible to, and if in this our system of capitalism, which I love, by the way, you have to, once you build, right, you are going to pass it on to the next person. So now the issue isn't that. The issue is that because of historic harms, it is not fair to now just say, well, it's like, we have to be responsible with our capital, because a lot of these harms, like I said, this is systemic harms that have been caused by our infrastructure, the way we have apportioned infrastructure and resources and access in this city historically. So I want to say that the city of Boston is doing the best that it can with the limited resources. Even the redlining itself, right? 90% of it was paid by federal money. I mean, let's just keep it real. Okay? So this is literally not the city is doing the best thing to do with the limited resources. It can advocate harder. It can't clearly point out some of these things that we're talking about. But as far as like what it's doing to keep people systemically in, I do believe they're doing their best. I do believe that there's other things that need to be fixed out. And like I said, this is not just the government's fault. You guys have to support organizations that are doing this kind of work. There's Reclaim Roxbury. There's Dorchester not for sale. Dot not for sale. There's many of these organizations out there. Please support them. Okay. There's I don't want to just put this responsibility just on the government and the city. You have a responsibility. If you watch this podcast, you think this is good, donate something, because we're at that stage now. Okay. We do so there is need for more funds and innovative approaches and for resident intentional relocation. That's where we are now. I've given you an update. I've given you a history. I've gone back 60 years to try and tie everything together, right? So that we can come together under one shared group of facts. That's the reason behind my documentary. That's the reason behind this work that I'm doing, is because you'll be surprised how much we can come together if we just operating from the same shared set of facts. Can't even say it. Set of facts. Right? I really mean this. And I hope you can see the fire, because this is where we are coming from. And I've been telling you that it's not just me. Maybe they want to do the podcast, but I'm not, there's a lot of us behind. I want to send out a shout out to Scott. We're actually meeting today. Scott, Mimi, Pat, Amias, there's a bunch of us, y'all, that are doing this work to try and help. We're meeting today even at the Southwest Boston CDC. So shout out to Southwest for providing space for us to do planning and developmental work. We need you guys to please, no matter what you do, in your community, let's pause all these zoning efforts till we understand what's going on. Let's get community education up to date, being ready. Before we started, let's set measurable success measures. So what's a win and what's a loss? So we're not just moving in the dark here. Address the affordability crisis, which, like I said, this is about AMI and a lot of education things. And like I said, this is a federal issue, even at that. I mean, I-95 is a federal road. It's not a state road. Was a federal highway. So that was what caused it. And then, of course, ongoing community engagement. I think that there needs to be, the city needs to be working through more organizations like us, and so we can get the word out, so we can do more stuff. Because we're all in this together. We're all Bostonians. We're not trying to put anybody against each other. But, one of the things that, in fact, these 5 development plans were developed out of a city plan that our city counselor is going to do. And, our city counselor did in January 21st. Sorry, I'm trying to think of 3 things at once. And we got all these information for what community people were saying. This is not my words. And we've, a lot of people are coming across to do a lot of work. In fact, this is a picture I took just in Roxbury the other day. Communities need you. We need you. And we're just grateful for the opportunity that you've had to listen to us today on this chapter, on this the Redline Narrative podcast. We do have a couple of announcements that I need to make before I go. Remember, like, subscribe. We need you. We need the algorithms. We're doing our African American Academy Summer Projects program for youth this summer. So we've developed 3 tours. Our New Guinea Joy tour, our Once Upon a Time in Nubian Square tour, and our Roadmap to Beloved Community tour, and of Dorchester. And we're really trying. We're going to be training our young people to be the tour guides and work on podcasting and other great activities. We teach them the history of Black African American communities of Boston, of course, this Redline history. And as you know, we a lot of things are under attack right now. Black history is in the air, so we're doing a couple of events, fundraiser events. So if you're, we would appreciate you guys. Check us out on our social media. 57 After Martin, which signifies when he was assassinated on April 4th, and talks about the week of Holy Week Uprising, which, a lot of people were protesting across the country, and that protest spurred on the Fair Housing Act law, which was stalled in Congress at the time, and it passed 7 days later on April 11th, 1968. So we'll be talking about that and just reflecting this Easter at Wally's Jazz Cafe about, this historic transformative place and time that has to do with the actual outlawing of allocation of space, our very space that we breathe, our very Boston, apportioning our access to Boston, based on race and segregation. And that's what, this Fair Housing Act effectively did. It made it illegal to segregate spaces based on race, religion, or color, or any kind of disparity. So we're going to have a great time. It's a tour, it's a lunch, it's a documentary, it's a discussion. So I invite you to come there, and I have a couple of podcasts coming out this week. So I hope you look forward to that on our Culture to Thrive podcast. So we are just grateful for you spending this time with us. Like I said, we're in a different state of affairs, ladies and gentlemen. You should understand what's going on in our country now. African American history is under attack. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is under attack. Telling this real stories and being truthful is under attack. And I think that this is a time where we need to be resilient. We need to be very clear on our values, and we need to stand up for community actions, making sure that we are voting with not just our votes, but our dollars, and not only our dollars, our tax dollars. So you can go to this QR code, please share, please like, anything you can do. If it's all you can do is give us a share and a like, please give us a share and a like. If you can donate, please donate. If you just want to talk about this, if you want to reach out, if you want to get further involved, we have space for you. But right now is not the time to sit on the sidelines. And I'll leave you with this. My friend, a good friend of mine, we were talking the other day, she was saying how that if you ever wondered what you would do in the civil rights days, right? Because none of us were alive then, and people were getting hosed by dogs, hosed by hosed and dogged and and beaten and killed, and houses taken away, and lynchings, and I can go on and on, right? Rapes and crimes against humanity were happening, right? And all this time, these people were so brave to stand on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. They were willing to sit in on lunch counters. They were willing to to risk their homes and their houses being foreclosed on. They were willing to risk so much hatred. And this is our moment now, and this is not hyperbolic. The Department of Education, our funding in this fight, has already been affected. So if you think that this is going to happen by some way in the next 2 to 4 years anyway, we have a right at the African American Culture Initiative to fight for our existence. And all we do is African American history. And if you come in African American history, you're coming for us. And what do? We teach young people about their history of their communities. Can there be anything more human than that? So please, you guys know what to do. Click like, send a message, hit the QR code, learn more about us, make a donation, and we look forward to seeing you on the next Redline Narratives podcast. Yeah. Hey, go Celtics.